the pain like.
Hey guys, dearyoongi here, and welcome back to my channel. If you're following K-pop content, you may have recently noticed K-pop idols panicking anytime they appear to hold up a number or avoiding getting spotted wearing certain colours. That's right, it's time to get political. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the impact of South Korea's current election and what it appears to be doing to the K-pop industry, making the already rather strict rules and regulations K-pop idols have to follow even more severe, and why. So first, we'll start by briefly explaining what is going on this election season. Don't worry, I'll try to keep it simple. And why this has started to involve K-pop idols before we move on to, of course, the issues with this. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, we will discuss why this topic has come to light by looking at what exactly is going on in South Korea's political climate for K-pop idols to be doing all of this. You may remember seeing a crazy news story back in December 2024, where South Korea's president at the time, President Yoon Suk-yeol, attempted to impose an emergency martial law on the country. If he would have been able to succeed in imposing this, it would have prohibited the country from political activities, such as gatherings at the National Assembly, which of course mainly consists of Democratic members, aka the opposite to his party, and would have also suspended free press. Free press, or freedom of the press and media, is the idea that people are able to communicate their expressions freely via media, both printed and electronic, regardless of stance in favour or against the current government. The president's defence for the martial law was because he felt the Democratic Party in South Korea, aka his opposition, were conducting anti-state activities and collaborating with North Korea to destroy the country. It goes without saying, of course, that his decision to impose martial law was majorly criticised by the country's National Assembly, and a unanimous vote was passed to lift the martial law. The opposition immediately began proceedings to have the president impeached if he did not resign. Several of his officials around him did, even including the defense minister Kim Yong-hyun, who was the one who urged the president to impose the martial law in the first place. President Yoon did issue an apology for declaring martial law, but insisted he would fight until the end and that the martial law declaration was an act of governance to protect the country. Regardless of this, the president was impeached on the 14th of December 2024. In his place, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo served as acting president, but he was also impeached barely 2 weeks later on the 27th of December. This then meant that the finance minister and deputy prime minister Choi Sang-mok had to stand in as president, but this was just until the 24th of March because the previous one, Han Duck-soo's impeachment, was overturned, and that reinstated him as acting president. Are you keeping up? I'm sorry. While this was happening, investigations into the original President Yoon were still ongoing to confirm if his impeachment would be finalized, and on the 4th of April 2025, courts confirmed it was. President Yoon's impeachment was unanimously upheld, his removal from office was officially finalized, and it would be time for South Korea to elect a new president. That takes us to this week. Well, this week while I'm speaking, I'm sorry if you're watching from the future, just pretend it's the end of May 2025. Members of the South Korean public have been voting in their millions to elect who they believe will be the right candidate for office, because this is a really important election for them. Probably like many countries, there are two major parties that the public believes will be fighting for that place in office. You have the Democratic Party, led by Lee Jae-myung, who also may be known as candidate number 1 on a ballot paper, with blue as the representative colour. And then you have the Conservative People Power Party, currently led by Kim Moon-soo, candidate number 2 on a ballot, with the representative colour red. This is the same party which have been in power and were during that crazy martial law declaration. Okay, so you may be wondering, where has K-pop come into this huge political event? Well, during the election voting period this week, the majority of K-pop idols have been doing their very best to avoid being seen representing either party and their political beliefs in any way possible. It is largely believed that this is because any indication from a Korean celebrity of which party they'll be placing their votes for in the booth would potentially sway the public and their votes. This therefore means that idols have been avoiding using the numbers 1 or 2 where possible, because these can represent party 1 or party 2, and we're seeing this more commonly in the poses that idols do. So for example, a simple thumbs up could be perceived as a number 1, representing the Democratic Party. The peace sign is a common pose for K-pop idols usually, but this week this could be perceived as an idol trying to signify number 2 for the Conservative Party. Of course, because these poses come so naturally to idols, they won't realise they're even doing it half of the time until it's too late, and then they're seen kind of panicking when they realise what they did. I'll put some clips on screen as examples of this happening within the past week because there's been so many, with many groups involved such as Red Velvet's Irene and Seulgi, ATEEZ's Wooyoung, NMIXX's Lily, and many more. The election has also been influencing the style choices of K-pop idols too. This one has probably been more subtle because it's not like we see them accidentally holding up a number and then the whole ordeal of them panicking and covering it up here. It's just a style choice. In music show promotions, you may have seen a lot of artists wearing more neutral colours, such as blacks, whites, or browns, or if they are wearing colours, it's more discreetly, or their stylists have chosen options that the general public would not relate back to a leading party, such as green, orange, or pink, something like that. Some idols have been applauded for the way in which they have been cleverly remaining neutral during the election season. I remember Wonyoung recently uploaded a selfie in black and white, which fans have clocked she doesn't tend to do very often. Upon further research, people realised the reason she did do this was because the white shirt she was wearing in the photo featured blue text, and something as simple as this, yes, could have been perceived as her trying to express a political opinion had she not posted a photo in black and white. Another example is Big Bang member and soloist G-Dragon. This week, G-Dragon posted a selfie to his Instagram story, telling fans he was travelling to Los Angeles. However, in the photo, the plain lighting above him was blue, so to avoid any potential controversy that could stem from this post, he followed it up with another story, this time featuring a red moon. Therefore, because he posted both colours, nobody could imply that he was showing support for one party over the other. So we know now what these Korean celebrities have been doing, but I think it is important for us to also look at why, and what the consequences would be if they were to ignore this sort of unspoken rule, because for a lot of us in other areas of the world, this may be something we haven't really witnessed before. For us to look at this, I think it's crucial for us to understand the cultural differences that can come into play here, and the way in which Korea views its political culture. While there isn't necessarily a law that Korean celebrities cannot share their political opinions, everybody is of course allowed to do that. It is often frowned upon for celebrities in Korea to share their political beliefs. That's the difference. Like we touched upon earlier, this could be through fear of idols having potential impact to sway the way voters go. Now, if you think about the industry and expectations which K-pop idols have, and the way in which they're already treated as role models and literally idolized, that's where the word idol comes into their job role, it becomes much easier to understand why K-pop idols in particular would be expected to remain politically neutral to the public. There is an expectation amongst K-pop idols for them to be as obtainable as possible and portray this fantasy of a perfect person. I know this is going to sound crazy now I say it out loud, but in the image of a perfect person, they do not express any strong belief systems. We know how extremely divisive topics such as politics are, so if an idol is meant to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, them expressing any political beliefs would totally tamper with that. I think it's also important for us to understand that this election in particular is an important one for South Korea. Now, don't get me wrong, every election of course is important. You should go and have your voice heard and get your votes counted. Yes, this is dearyoongi saying wherever you are in the world, please go and vote wherever and whenever you can. Your votes can make a difference. But at the moment in South Korea, remember this isn't just a regular general election that occurs every few years. This election is the result of the current government being impeached for trying to impose crazy restrictions on the country and its freedoms with little reasoning or justification to do so. The public should hopefully want to avoid anything similar occurring anytime soon, and if they have now lost faith in the current party, it would be more crucial now than ever to try and make any changes they want to while they actually have the opportunity to do so. What the general public needs right now is everybody to vote based on their own belief systems of what they think is right and the political environment they want to live in. The last thing they need is thousands of votes to be cast based on an audience who could be very influenced by large celebrity culture around them and who they are implying fans should vote for. Before we go even deeper, because you know we always can on this channel, we looked at a couple examples of idols who have been praised for keeping neutral during election season. But what happens when an idol messes up and makes makes an apparently political statement. Maybe if we look at the issues with this, we'll understand even more why idols try and keep neutral. And we do have an example. On the 27th of May, so during voting week, aespa's Karina posted a series of pictures of herself to her Instagram. While this would usually seem innocent enough had she posted these photos on another time, unfortunately this particular week, this would not be the case. In the photos, Karina is wearing a black jacket with red pattern and the number 2 on it, also written in red, and the caption for her photos is a rose emoji. As we already looked at earlier, the number 2 and the colour red are both symbols of South Korea's People Power Party. But guess what? So is the rose, which was also a symbol during the right-wing party's campaign. These posts were heavily criticised by netizens for being completely inconsiderate of the election voting period that was ongoing at the time. But I think part of the criticism also will have come from the party who she appeared to of course be representing, and that the unspoken rule is you just don't do this. Within the following hours and days, Karina rapidly began to lose followers. I believe at the moment she's lost around 300,000 so far. I even saw international fans calling her MAGA Rina, which is a reference to Make America Great Again, a slogan of America's right-wing party. Karina did delete the photos and issued an apology to Bubble, which said, "I'm truly sorry for making Mize," which is aespa's fandom, worry. I had absolutely no political intent. aespa's agency, SM Entertainment, also released a statement confirming the photos were just everyday content, and they were deleted as soon as they realised there could be any misunderstanding. Fans weren't really too impressed with Karina's apology. It didn't seem very heartfelt or sincere, and even the fact she only posted this to Bubble, which is a paid messaging platform, rather than to Instagram, where the majority of people will have seen the photos, has been criticised as well. This is because it's kind of basically implying that the only people who warrant an apology are paid subscribers. This is like me or any other YouTuber uploading a really insulting or controversial video and then issuing an apology only to Patreon subscribers who send me money every month because they're the only ones I'm bothered that were offended, you know? Okay, so now we've seen examples of what is seen as appropriate and inappropriate behaviour from K-pop idols during their elections. Is there a chance that this issue could go beyond just elections? You know what time it is. We might be discussing politics, but I am of course a K-pop YouTuber. Let's dive even deeper to what this shows us about K-pop idols and the industry's expectations of them. So if you've watched my videos before, you might have seen that a few months back, I uploaded a video called "Should K-pop idols be allowed to speak about world events?" And this was mainly looking at the idea of idols speaking about ongoing world issues and the potential reasons why they might not be able to. This included issues with them having contractual obligations not to do so and potentially influencing sponsorships. However, this topic in particular is about local events in their own country and their political environment, which I do believe is a different ballgame altogether because it affects them domestically with their local perceptions. I don't want to repeat myself too much and would like to take this video instead on a different angle of what this teaches us about idol culture rather than should they speak about politics, you know? We don't rehash the same thoughts over here. I have been into K-pop for quite a long time now, but I don't recall ever seeing this happen before, in the sense that the country had an election and idols had to be super careful to not express any political opinions during it. But then that made me think, maybe the reason I haven't actually noticed this before is because this is something that idols are navigating all the time. I don't think I have ever seen anybody challenge a K-pop idol to express their political opinions. This is very different to what we see in other parts of the world, like the West, where I am, for example. Celebrities here are expected to share their political opinions, even though the results are not always something people want to hear, because people expect them to use their platforms. For idols in Korea, however, it almost feels like the complete opposite, and yet this is just another thing they aren't allowed to do. Aren't allowed to date, you aren't allowed to smoke, and now another one for us that we're experiencing firsthand, we aren't allowed to talk about politics. It's yet another layer of difficulty and restrictions that are on top of already crazy high expectations idols have placed on them to be perfect but also perfectly silent. And I can't help but think how this must impact them mentally, especially if there's some idols out there who have really strong political beliefs, especially in a time like now after the potential they could have lived in a martial law, but we would never know because they won't be allowed to express these beliefs. For today's video conclusion, rather than me just expressing my opinions, because I can't exactly do that with it not being my country on my election, if that makes sense, I thought it would be interesting to also briefly look upon the impact Western K-pop audiences will be having on K-pop idols during their election. Because it's not just the local Korean audience they have to take into consideration, but believe it or not, I think we global K-pop fans will also be part of the reason they have such strong restrictions elections during political periods. I did say that this issue, of course, is something that hits closer to home for a lot of K-pop idols, because it is literally elections to pick a president for their country where they live, and it will affect them a lot more in their daily life, perhaps than other world issues would, that they aren't usually allowed to speak out on. But with that being said, as K-pop continues to reach a more global audience, the way in which idols respond to their own country's elections will be observed by the West, and could potentially impact the way they're perceived globally. I mean, look at me now, for example. I'm in England following the Korean election and the way K-pop celebrities are behaving during it. As K-pop continues to grow, I think the industry will be expecting idols to be even more careful with how they present themselves politically. I really don't see a future where they're able to express their political beliefs more freely. This is because the way you align politically does make the public judge you a lot. Look at aespa's Karina at the moment. While yes, of course, people frowned upon her seemingly addressing the election in general, during voting period, fans have also been even more critical of the party she seemed to be supporting in those posts. She lost hundreds of thousands of followers, and they won't have all been from South Korea. There'll be a lot of international fans in there too, who have heard bad things about this party, and therefore inferred they don't agree with her political beliefs and no longer want to support her. That's why she gained the nickname Magarina in reference to America's political climate. Korean agencies will see these sorts of things and know that if international audiences are sensitive towards political opinions, they'll have to make 100% sure that the idols do not do anything that may appear political. While yes, we see examples on the daily of K-pop becoming more westernized, I think this is just one part of idol life and expectations that will remain very Korean and very reserved. Okay guys, and that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about these restrictions, and do you agree with them? If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be the first to hear whenever I upload, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!